Rev up your engines!
Well, BMW and Toyota are taking a risky gamble on a failing product. And guess what it is? Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. Now, the Toyota Mirai, there was nothing wrong with the vehicle itself. The problem is, there's no fuel for it. The people in California, the few fools that bought the Mirais, they're suing Toyota because they say, you promised we're going to have fuel stations everywhere, where there's hardly any. Shell had a few, but even Shell shut them all down, said they're not economically viable, blah, blah, goodbye, we're not going to do it anymore. Maybe they're thinking, way in the future. You think there's not an electrical infrastructure for EV cars, and of course that is true, but there is absolutely no infrastructure for hydrogen whatsoever. James May had a Toyota Mirai in England, I believe, and he said it was the best car he ever had to get rid of because there was only one station in England that had hydrogen. And unless he lived there and didn't go far, he's SOL when he needed hydrogen for his car, right? But for some reason, BMW and Toyota said they're intending their new offering to establish hydrogen fuel technology consisting of a hydrogen-powered generator, batteries, and electric motors, an alternative to battery electric vehicles. Yeah, well, battery electric vehicles, yeah, they don't work as they stand. But you're going to switch to hydrogen? Where the heck is that stuff going to come from, right? The United States Air Force, as a matter of fact, decades ago, they tried hydrogen in cars, trucks, even planes, and they said it works perfectly fine. But the problem is the infrastructure. Hydrogen doesn't have as much energy, so it's got to be compressed a bunch. That's kind of dangerous, and the range is limited. And if the U.S. Air Force gave up with it decades ago, why do they think it's going to work any better now? It's beyond me, but I guess these companies have lots of money and they want to fart around with something, so they're going to work together. And Toyota and BMW, well, you know, they make the Toyota Supra. It's actually a BMW. It's not a Toyota, so who knows? Maybe they got bored engineers, so they're giving them something to do. I don't know. It's just, the whole thing sounds kind of ridiculous. Nitpoon says, hello, everyone. I hope you talk about the Normal, Illinois Rivian EV factory having a new EVs burst into flames. Yeah, it's totally bizarre, too. I mean, you can't trust these EVs. It's insanity. In that case, it wasn't in the factory. It was in the parking lot. It was just sitting there, and woof, there it goes, right? These electric cars are not ready for prime time. They just aren't. I don't care what anybody says, they're not ready for prime time. You can do whatever you want, say whatever you want. They aren't. And if you buy one and your house burns down, well, don't say I didn't warn you. I have talked to numerous engineers, and every single one said to me, Scotty, I'm afraid of electric cars. I know the energy density that has to be in those battery packs to propel a heavy vehicle down the road. It's too dangerous. Now, don't believe advertising hype that you see. I just read an article that says Lincoln Nautilus sales are up 21%. The second quarter of 2024, you think, oh, they're going like hotcakes. They hardly sell any of them. Figures can be deceiving. Lincoln Nautilus sales in Mexico were up 113%. You think, wow, they're selling like hotcakes. Well, not really, because in 2023, 94 units. Okay? 2024, they sold 200 in a quarter, right? 3 months. So it's such a small amount. An increase means absolutely nothing. So don't be fooled by these figures. You got to look at the raw data, and the raw data will tell you they're not selling very well, right? Like in Mexico, well, it went up 118%. Oh, instead of selling 94, they sold 200. Whoop-de-doo. Now in the United States, it's a bigger figure, but still, it's not all that many vehicles. For example, they sold 6,800 of them in the second quarter of 2023. 6,800, and they sold 8,200 in the second quarter of 2024. Big deal. You know, it's a small amount of vehicles. They're not selling that many of them. 6 months, they sold 1,200 units. So, you know, that's nothing. They're not popular. But you read these figures and these sales brochures, and they're advertising, oh, our sales are up, they're up, they're up. It's such a small amount, it doesn't mean anything. For example, that same period, Toyota sold 155,000 Camrys. So, you know, a few thousand of these Nautiluses, they're not really affecting the market much at all. But they make it look like, oh, sales are up 21%. Look, they're selling like hotcakes. Here's something that I just can't believe. In Indiana, they are constructing an electric charging highway, okay? And we know the government is paying for it, right? They're building a quarter of a mile where they're going to have like electric grids under the road so trucks can drive and they can charge by inductive charging and drive down the road, right? Kind of like little toy trains when we were kids that ran on electric tracks, only these tracks are going to be coils buried under the road. They broke construction on this thing in the spring of 2024. It's a quarter of a mile in U.S. Highway 231, a quarter of a mile. They're going to put coils and electronics in it eventually, though they said it won't be ready for testing until the spring of 2025, so that's 3/4 of a year from now. And you think, wait a second, they're building a quarter of a mile thing to test it out, right? If it actually worked, can you imagine what it costs to do thousands of miles of highway? Because, of course, the article itself didn't tell you how much it cost because they were trying to push the screen stuff. So I did a little research, and I found out that the Indiana officials say the cost of the quarter-mile strip is $11 million. So that would be $44 million per mile. We don't even know if it's going to work, right? Now, you do have to have the electricity to charge it. Where's that coming from? But even if there was magic electricity everywhere, if it costs $44 million a mile, and you got to build the U.S. thousands of miles infrastructure for it, that's just total insanity. And of course, the reason they're doing it is because everyone that's got a brain in their head realizes that giant electric semi-trucks with batteries are a joke. They can't pull all that weight very far. Elon's got his out, and they have all these scams where, oh, we're driving from L.A. to Phoenix, and you find out they used 3 separate trucks. 2 of them were towed by diesel trucks with a flatbed trailer, so when the battery ran out, they'd replace the cab with another one, right? You can't use batteries for that. It doesn't work. So now, well, if you have inductive charging, like your cell phone going on inductive charging, right, and you can drive it, they won't need big batteries. And yeah, $44 million a mile, right? And it's going to take them, over a year to build a quarter of a mile. Imagine it would take 1 billion years to do the whole country, right? It would cost $quadrillion to do it. Sometimes they come up with the stupidest plans, you know? This is even dumber than Elon Musk's boring tunnel that goes 1.5 miles and it's still being driven by, even though it's one way, by drivers, not even self-driving with his little Tesla cars under the Las Vegas convention centers, right? This is even dumber. Yeah, I'm sure you can make it work, but at what cost? The very radio blah says, does anybody have any suggestions how easy it is to install a third-party horn with its own button that I can put on the fuse of the battery? My steering wheel push button broke and I don't feel like taking out the airbag. Oh yeah, very simple. As a matter of fact, it's kind of funny because my old roommate from Illinois, Ken, said, how come every car you have doesn't have a horn anymore? You got a little switch for the horn. Oh, because I'm too cheap to take it apart too. I'm a mechanic. I don't want to waste time in my own cars. All you have to do is, you auto parts store sell, you can get them online, get what's called a momentary on toggle switch. So when you touch the switch, it'll beep, and when you let go, it goes off. That's why it's called momentarily on toggle switch. You can get some wire, you can connect it to the positive terminal of your battery, put like a 5 amp fuse in line, run that to the switch, and then run the other switch to the horn that you just bought. Most horns are very simple. You bolt them anywhere on the car. They got power and they got ground. So you put your new switch to the power, and the ground wire, you just put a wire on it and then bolt the other end to the frame of the car, and that will ground it. Very easy to do. I did it on many of my cars. I usually put it by the gear shifter, so it's down there, and then you just honk, honk, or you can drill a hole in the plastic dash, bolt in the little momentary on toggle switch, honk, honk, and when you let go. That way, if it's a switch that you turn on, then you got to turn it off. Momentary on toggle switch is better because it beeps when you hit it. When you let go, it stops. Very simple thing anybody can do. Well, a study that Nature was talking about, magazine, said that the huge explosions that destroyed SpaceX mega rocket last year blew one of the biggest holes ever detected in the ionosphere. The hole stretched for thousands of kilometers. Now, what you might not realize is these rockets, depending on how big they are, contain well over 10 million pounds of fuel, and they blew up in the air. 10 million pounds of, that is a lot of explosive energy, right? Most people don't realize how large these things are. Now, they try to hide it because sometimes they'll say, oh, it's only this, but then they're only talking about one of the boosters. You get the big one and you include the boosters and everything that they shoot up in the air. It's over 10 million pounds of fuel. That is a lot of fuel. And it blew up. It created a massive hole. They said it was even worse than the volcanoes that were erupting in Norway and Finland, the stuff that shut down all those airports for a while. That is a lot of fuel to blow up in the air. These people, they're gambling with stuff, you know? It's kind of makes you wonder. And they always try to hide it, because I had to do a lot of research to get this information, because some of them said, oh no, it's only 2 million pounds. Still 2 million pounds is a lot, but it's actually 10 when you include all the different rockets and boosters and fuel that they have. And they always want to make it look smaller than it actually is. Well, the rocket has this much fuel. Then you find out, well, that's only one of the boosters on it, and there's 2 of them, and then there's another part. You add them all together, it's over 10 million pounds of fuel blowing up. So, hey, anybody that thinks old Elon that cares about green society, they got another thing coming. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.